Hey guys, welcome to Juicy Tea, where I read out the best stories on Reddit, so you don't have to. The funny, the shocking, the satisfyingly juicy. Today we're looking at the most satisfying stories on Reddit, where people get juicy justice. My long-term boss betrayed me and screwed me over money he owed me. So, I made sure he lost something worth 30 times more that he dreamed about for his whole life. Posted by Big Bad Beef. So, where to begin? Well, back in my 20s, after completing the required welding courses, I was offered a job as a field welder. This is where Rat Boss comes in, RB for short. RB ran a small welding business with a half-dozen-man crew travelling all over Europe doing welding. He said he'd take me in, show me the ropes, and teach me real welding. And let me tell you, the first 6 years were amazing! Yes, it was hard work, dawn to dusk, 7 days a week, sometimes away for over a month. But the travels, the adventure, the camaraderie, we were complete strangers to each other at the start, but we became like brothers, sticking together through thick and thin. Thinking back on it, I miss those days, even if they are behind me. And RB was, back at that time, the kind of boss that puts all other bosses to shame. I remember one time where he took out a loan with a large interest, just so he could pay us our wages, because he had an emergency expense that drained his bank account 2 weeks before a customer was due payment. He'd rather go into debt to pay us on time than to ask us to just hang in there for a few weeks. But everything changed by year 7. At that time, most of the core crew had left, missing their families too much to keep doing it. So did RB. He set me up as a foreman, while he himself found work back at home. It didn't start off so bad at first, but the people that worked with me, it just wasn't the same. They were all short-term workers, there to make a quick buck, settle some debts, or gain some experience before finding better paid work back at home. But then the pandemic struck. It wasn't a big deal for me since I was used to having cash reserves for rainy days. But what came after is where things started to go seriously wrong. Nobody decent wanted to work abroad anymore, so the people that came to work with me were those that RB practically fished out of the sewers. Drunkards, thieves, drug addicts, destitutes, the kinds with nothing to lose and who would not do a good job. It all went downhill rather quickly. As the foreman, I made sure the job got done regardless, and that the work was signed off so the bill would get sent and wages paid. But there were constant incidents outside of work. Incidents unique to the demographic that worked with me. To top it off, wages started coming in late, travel costs weren't being refunded, and Rat Boss started doing some creative accounting when it came to the differences between everyone's net and gross wages. It all came to a boiling point when I received a phone call at 3 AM. One of the boys had been arrested for drunken disorderly. He didn't have ID on him, only the workplace identity card. So they phoned our customer in the middle of the night to help identify the foreman of that animal. So yeah, I got a call to come pick him up and had to deal with him. When I got back home, I had a good long sit down with Rat Boss. Told him I was done with that BS and that it was time to settle the accounts. He sort of half-heartedly apologised. He also admitted that he was having problems with his wife, who co-ran the business, and was fighting with him over how much money was being spent. At that point, he owed me around a year's worth of travel expenses, and if you take into account the fact that I travelled at least 2,000 miles monthly, that was a substantial amount of money. He apologetically asked me to wait a bit on that money because his wife was cockblocking him on any major expenditure. He also asked me to stay on with him for just a few months more on minimum wage, just until he can put together a decent crew. The idiot that I was accepted his proposal. There was no reason not to trust him. After all, we'd known each other for almost 7 years at the time, and I didn't think it was unreasonable to give him time to fix this. But I did have one condition. I needed half that money that he owed me by the end of September because I'm having some work done on my house. He said that shouldn't be a problem this far in advance. I said okay, we have a deal, but I remained suspicious. A couple of months went by. I worked for RB locally on minimum wage, except the problem was that even that wage came in late. My heckles were raised. I was concerned that I would have to postpone the work on my house, work for which the craftsmen were so hard to come by, and you have to pay a deposit. In the beginning of September, I reminded him of his partial debt repayment. He assured me that paying half of what he owed me for travel costs wouldn't be a problem, and that he's got the cash ready. As we parted ways, he gave me the fakest smile I've ever seen in my life. I stared him down. I gave him the kind of look that even a dumbass would recognize as, I am not fooling around anymore. Arby lost that fake smile almost immediately. I said goodbye and got in my car and drove home. That weekend, Arby sent me a message about how he's got a crew lined up and that he's going abroad to talk to a potential customer to get his foot back into the fieldwork door. Alarm bells started ringing instantly. He's going to avoid me for the date that he was due to pay half his debt. He's going to screw me over. He was going to screw me over. Bastard! After everything we've been through together. At that point, I decided, if the money doesn't come in by the due date, a 30-day resignation notice is going to be waiting for him when he gets back, filed on the exact day he was supposed to pay me. But the thing is, when someone has you this riled up, you kind of have a hard time focusing at work. So I slipped on a ramp. I didn't just sprain my ankle or tear a ligament, I downright destroyed it, about a week before his payment was due. We're talking about emergency surgery, 2 weeks minimum at the hospital, and being unable to put proper weight on that foot for 6 months. And what do you guys think happened to the money he promised me? It didn't come. Big surprise! Not only that, but even my wage didn't get wired that month. It gets even worse. While I was in the hospital, heavily medicated, the work got done at my house. My mother, who had authorization on my accounts in case of emergency, used my savings to pay for the work on my house instead of cancelling, which means that I had very little money left. She told me not to worry and that I'd still get paid sick leave. I wasn't so sure. The thing is, in my country, in the case of a work-related injury and recovery period of longer than a month, the employer is only required to pay for the first month of sick leave. The rest is funded by the government, and the employer only pays for social security and taxes. The government wires the sick leave money to the employer to forward to the employee, which of course didn't happen. I didn't receive a single cent from him. So here I was, broken, crippled, bedridden, and unable to work. And it gets worse. I ran out of money just as I had a last installment on an outstanding debt to pay. Banks were calling me weekly, so I had to cash in an investment to pay it off. An investment that would have yielded me a modest amount of passive income for the rest of my life. So I wanted revenge. He lied to me, hid from me, failed to pay what was owed, stole from me, and pocketed the money that was meant for me by the government. He will cook in the fires of hell for what he's done. The Revenge. A little backstory about Rat Boss. He lived in a tiny apartment in our capital city, along with his wife and 2 children. He hated that apartment, but he did have a dream. He bought a plot of land where he was building a large house. So large, in fact, that a single one of the rooms was going to be bigger than his whole apartment. Over the course of those 7 years, he slowly built it up, brick by brick. And he was almost done. When we still talked, he told me that he was almost 6 months away from moving in. Now, the thing about me being his foreman is that it involves a lot of paperwork. Every decision, every purchase, every dirty little secret hidden away in the numbers. And I had it all. It was simply a matter of forwarding it to the appropriate authorities. And as soon as I could walk, I turned him into every government agency that had a shot at getting to him. The biggest hit came at the Labour Inspectorate. As the caseworker rummaged through the evidence I presented her, she mumbled to herself, wide-eyed, something along the lines of, "My God, he broke half the labour laws in our country!" The aftermath. I live in what could be considered a second world country. Our government is slow and ineffective, but it does act when prompted. And when it acted on Rat Boss, his fall was like being hit in the face by the same meteor that killed the dinosaurs. His accounts were frozen, he was barred from travelling abroad, his business licenses were suspended, and he was required to dismiss all his current employees, with severance, money which he didn't have. He filed for bankruptcy soon after, and he was required to sell the house that he'd been dreaming about for his entire life to settle the fines. He is stuck now, just like I was, but even worse. He is trapped in that sardine can of his, unable to work, unable to support his family, unable to pay the bills until the legal proceedings from the government finish for what he did to me. I was able to stay afloat, but after what I did to him, he is done, broken, reduced to utter destitution. He called me when the government's gravel hit his face. He yelled over the phone saying, "How could I do this to him?" and screamed curse words at me. In return, I called him out for lying to me about money after 7 years, leaving me to rot in a hospital penniless. And I called him a rat that betrayed his friend, and to never call me again as we're now in a legal dispute, and he should forward all communication through the case office of the Labour Inspectorate, and I hung up. I made a claim on his bankruptcy proceedings, but by the time that he'd paid all the fines, all I was able to claim from him was a single month worth of sick leave. No travel costs, no nothing else. But it's okay, I can live with that, as long as he got 10 times over the grievance he inflicted on me. No eye for an eye, no tooth for a tooth, the whole face for an eye, the whole head for a tooth. I stand both literally and figuratively, but Rat Boss is deep in the dirt. While he used to dream about his big house, now he dreams only about how he'll someday, maybe, just maybe, be able to crawl all the way back up to rock bottom to start all over again. Anyways, that's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. Have an amazing rest of your day. Bye!